What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 275 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I have my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
Hey, welcome back.
Hi.
We had the week off.
We did.
Can
It was
you believe
great.
it?
Yeah.
Anyways, big thanks to all the ladies from last week for filling in for us. That was a lot of fun. Joining us this week, patiently waiting on Skype while we work up our introduction, is a friend that we had the pleasure of meeting at Seampunk World's Fair in one of the fabled vendor rooms that I always speak of and the things that I love. The cramped quarters, just showing you all the neat stuff, is our friend Ray from Dellamorte Company.
Hey, how's it going?
Or Dellamorte Co, excuse me. Ray, thank you so much for coming on. Really excited. I've been looking forward to this since we left New Jersey. It was one of those connections like, okay, we're going to have to talk with them. Because Ray, you and your associates make really neat stuff, and we're excited to talk to you about it.
This is one of those rooms that I like to sum up of saying, so if you haven't heard us explain the vendor room yet, it's the first floor of this hotel. And you walk down the hallway normally, and there's all the rooms where people would normally
like a hotel
sleep
room.
in a hotel room. But they have been transformed into a small shop. It's a little store in these people's rooms, and that's where they vend. That's where their products are. And when you get to the Dellamorte Company room, even this past year, you walk up to it and it's coming because the giant tentacles outside the door.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you want to peek inside, then go, I'm not cool enough to be in there. Look at all that stuff. That stuff is so cool. I can't go in there. I'm not hip enough. I'm not I don't know. But then you walk in and it's full of super awesome people. They're super nice, and it's just amazing products. And from the 3 years we've been there, we've never been
Five.
We've that I consciously know that I've seen products.
Oh yeah.
And we've never been hassled to buy something. It's just you take it in if you want it. We're here for you.
Yeah.
But it's not you're gonna buy it, don't touch it. It's no, they're super cool, and it's just really cool stuff.
Thanks.
And so we have Ray here to talk with us about it.
That's me. I make the cool stuff.
All right, that's all the time we have.
Yeah, that's it. I make cool stuff. That's what I do.
It's one of those rooms where you walk into, and at least personally, it's a goddamn it room, if you'll pardon my French, because you walk in and you go, oh god damn it, because it's okay, I already budgeted, my funds. I was gonna be plan on buying a new cudgel from Mark Donnelly later, and I was gonna buy something, such and such with. It's I didn't budget for this, but I need it anyways. It's a goddamn it room because there's kind of, I want to say something for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to make functional art, a lot of it. So, a lot of it does something.
Right.
So there's really neat stuff like statues and figures. There's figurines of different things. Now they have Christmas ornaments, but there's also lamps and bottle stoppers,
vases,
and canes and vases and plant holders and wall sconces and so now there's they've branched out. There's a bit more of everything, and it's all over the room. You might look at something and be was that supposed to be there? It's no, that's too cool to just be sitting in this hotel. They just found a really good spot for it that looks great. But
we put a lot of effort into transforming the hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
It shows too, because a lot of sometimes you'll walk into it they're and I'm not trying to knock anyone, but sometimes you can walk in, it's okay, here's my table of stuff, and then there's other people you'll come in and it's where did you put the bed? Where are you sleeping? There's literally no room.
We get a separate room for that.
Oh, no shit. The genius.
Yeah, shit.
Who knew?
Yeah. Usually one of us stays in the hotel room, the vendor room, because whatever, we pile all the stuff onto the bed. We move the beds, we move everything.
Right.
We remove the TV and we hide it in the bathroom. We really go all out in transforming the room each year. The first year we did Steampunk, we were actually outside in the courtyard and we had a tent.
Yeah.
And we tried to make it up like a parlor. So we actually brought couches and stuff so people could sit down and hang out.
How many years
Yeah.
have you been doing World's Fair now?
I don't remember. I think maybe 5. I think 5
Right,
now.
right. Because I recall having
not
seen the
sure.
tentacle many a time.
Yeah.
There's a funny story behind the tentacle too.
We now I need to hear it.
Shall we take it now?
We're gonna go right. We're gonna take that track right down into it.
It's legit like at least a 5 to 6 foot tentacle that
Yeah,
like,
it's-
looks
it's
like
huge.
it's coming up out of the ground in this hotel hallway in front of this room with like some
Yeah.
signage to direct you inside. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, we put the sign on there because everybody takes a selfie in front of the giant tentacle, so we thought like the company name should be represented.
Yes.
But that tentacle was when Mike was hired by Kraken Rum to design some displays for them. So Kraken Rum saw the Dellamorte catalog, and they bought a ton of stuff from Mike. They bought like bottle openers, bottle stoppers. They bought a cane. They bought a whole bunch of tentacle products, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to hire you to design some stuff." He didn't construct the tentacle, but he designed. I mean, Mike could have obviously sculpt it. So anyway, it was a rum display in a supermarket, and I guess they were throwing it out. Mike's dad saw it and threw it in his trunk. And one day, like Mike's over his parents' house, and his dad's like, "I got a big surprise for you. Go out in the shed in the yard." And it's the tentacle. So we modified it a little bit and painted it up, and it comes with us every event. Sometimes we have a skeleton too, but the tentacle's been a staple for at least 3 or 4 years now, and it makes the room really easy to find. Almost like a barber pole or whatever.
Classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I need to see a barber pole with tentacles.
Instead
I
of
mean, how
stripes.
rad would that be?
That would be
We
really
could
cool.
make that happen.
Oh man.
So we haven't like gotten down to details of the products. Like,
Yeah.
we've said
What is?
we've
There's
said,
a giant tentacle and you sell stuff.
and there's stuff there.
Yeah.
So it, like we said, it's a good room for everyone who might want to go buy something at Steampunk World's Fair, because like there is a good touch of like a lot of macabre or macabre, however you want to pronounce it, and there's also some innovative like old world stuff like you would find a lot of steampunks into. One of my I have like a soft spot for all the diver stuff, like the diver helmet and everything, and so they have
that's
some. They have some, let's see, some wall plaques of this diver helmet that lights up and has tentacles on it, and there's a lot of octopus stuff. But then they also get into... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that diver helmet's not actually a Dellamorte product. That's mine.
Ooh.
Forget about the diver helmet.
It's on the Etsy page, so...
Oh, the box, the custom box that I did as a collaboration with Charlie is, but like the diving helmet, nightlight, and bottle opener. I mean, Mike sculpted those for me, but that's not a Dellamorte item. That's that's my own little side company.
And that is?
Black Rider.
That
I'm a
makes
big
sense.
Tom Waits fan.
We're talking about Rider right now. But there's also what's the term for it? There's I can't think of the word I want to use now. Like folklore, because there's a
Krampus,
Krampus
Baba
stuff,
Yaga.
Baba Yaga, and then Jared was like looking at
La
one.
Befana.
Which one was that?
La Befana, the Italian Christmas witch.
You
I,
know,
one of
I
our-
immediately need to know more about this. But
John would know that one. I feel.
Okay. So the folklore is that in Italy, anyway, the folklore is La Befana is the Italian Christmas witch, and when the 3 wise men were going to, on their way, they stopped at this woman's house, but she had like chores to do or something. She
Yeah.
was some witch. I don't know, whatever witches do. Butchering the folklore, and it's great. So, she was just whatever. So she's like, okay, I'll meet you the next day, but she never found them. So the thing is, every Christmas Eve, La Befana gets on her broom, flies around looking for, this newborn Messiah, but she doesn't know which baby it is, so she brings presents to all of the children.
Huh.
Yeah. which is a much happier thing than Krampus, which we do quite a few
Yeah.
of.
Hearing the words Italian Christmas Witch, I thought it was going to go
Something
the
terrible.
way of the Krampus. She flies around on a
No.
broom, stealing children because she can't find
No,
the
no,
one.
no. We have Baba Yaga for that, but yeah, we got Krampus. We have a couple of Krampuses.
And Jared was looking at one figure and didn't know what it was, and I look and I was like, oh, that's a Jersey Devil.
Yes.
And like I think one of you heard me and was like, oh, you got it. And I was like, well, we're in New Jersey, so
Yeah, the Jersey Devil. That ornament's the biggest pain in the ass to make. I hate it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's really difficult. The tail requires an armature wire, but Mike doesn't compromise his artistic vision
for
to
ease of production.
Exactly. No, he has an idea, for the most part. Sometimes you can convince him, but for the most part, it's like, he wants to do something and have it be awesome, so we find a way to make it. So, yeah, the Jersey Devil has, there's wire that goes into that tail because the resin's too thin, it's fragile.
Yeah.
So you have to cut wire by hand and then bend it to fit inside of a silicone mold. And then sometimes when you inject the resin, the wire moves and sticks out a little bit.
Right.
It's not easy. And then the wings are very thin, so there's workarounds for that. Usually I rip up either toilet paper or paper towels and stick them in the mold. So when the resin binds to it, it thickens it so you can't see through the wings because they're thin. But you need to sculpt them thin because otherwise it's just going to look like a chicken wing, and that's not cool.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But it's a phenomenal sculpt. It's really good. The same with the flying monkey. Very difficult to make, but it looks incredible.
We had this talk while we were there in person because I made one of those mistakes of I saw something really cool that I wanted to buy, but I didn't buy it right away. While I was there, I played I'll come back tomorrow. And of course, then it's gone because someone else already bought it.
Was it Cthulhu?
Was it the mug?
It was the mug, the tentacle mug.
Oh.
Which, as you were telling us then, that's also one that's really difficult to make or difficult to pull out of the mold because of how many parts there are to it and how many shapes make up this thing.
Well, it's actually a mechanical tolerances issue. So those mugs were pretty much just for that event because the mold hasn't been perfected yet.
Right.
It's been through like 3 iterations. This is something, the tentacle mug, we've been working on for like a year and a half. Just different techniques and what have you. But it has a stainless steel insert because you don't want liquid just kind of pooling around in the resin.
Yeah.
We use like food safe materials and then we spray it with a food safe like lacquer. Just to be doubly safe, but we use a stainless steel insert, so it makes it safer to wash too. Because you don't want to stick like an expensive hand-painted mug in your dishwasher.
Right.
But if you could just pull a stainless steel cup out and stick that in, it's perfect. So it preserves the life of your art. However, getting that stainless steel cup in there is very exacting, and there's a little bit of shrink with resin, which isn't an issue when you're talking about a statue or a bottle opener, corkscrew, whatever, cane, it's fine. But when you're talking about sticking it into a mug, it gets a little tight, it's hard to pull out. So the insides had to be sanded by hand on each one of those mugs. So that mug's not available. The Krampus mug and the new bat mug are available right now, though. And the bat looks fantastic. I think it just came out like last week.
We haven't seen the bat.
We haven't seen the bat.
No.
We saw the
Oh, man.
Krampus,
Yeah.
and we saw the tentacle.
Yeah.
The bat looks great. There's a skull too that's going to come out soon, and again, that's one we've been working on for a while. Yeah, but that tentacle mug, that thing, so nice. Oh, I love the paint job on that, and coloring that was interesting too.
Because I believe he had two. He had like a green one and a red one, I think, if I recall.
Yeah, the tentacles are different colors, but the metal color on it, there's like a pewter color and a bronze color.
Yeah.
So that's not paint. That's not paint. I sourced a powder pigment that's used in cosmetics. I'm really, by the way, like the one thing I really excel at is sourcing the best materials for the company and finding new materials, cheaper materials, better materials, just interesting stuff, mostly like metal powders and things like that. So I went around to a bunch of cosmetic companies and I found stuff that was completely safe for like lipstick and eyeshadow. And I mixed that into the resin to give it its color. So it's not paint, it's, a cosmetic grade, it's like it's safe for lip contact in case like it were to bleed or something.
Right.
It could be an issue. Yeah. I mean, I gotta look out for the customers,
How many tests did that take to like get the right like mix?
Color?
Yeah.
Oh man, that was pretty quick. The pewter color won. The first thing I got was perfect. It's absolutely perfect. The bronze color, I think it was like the second one I got. But I bought a whole bunch. I bought a whole bunch of samples at once. Like I ordered like, whatever, a ton. I have a whole shelf of pigments, and I have like just a box full of powder samples that I've bought. And like some of them are like $1 for like 3 grams. But 3 grams on a a powder that's lighter than air is considerable. It's enough to get multiple castings out of. So I just buy a lot of samples, just drop like 20, 30 bucks on, just like a plethora of different samples, and they come in like little Ziploc bags. I'm like, all right, cool. I can experiment. When things get slow, I love to experiment.
Has it ever gotten to a point where the products you want to discontinue, you have to like find a replacement? Or has that not happened yet?
We've never discontinued anything.
Well, I mean, like you're getting all your samples for your pigments or your colors or anything, and like if you found that this specific flaking works really well, but then the company stops making it, do you already know what you?
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm really upset with them. Oh, I hate them. Oh God.
Wow.
Yeah, our Cthulhu bottle opener was done in this green that was perfect, like just the perfect green. I've tried like 20 new greens, and none of them are right. And I ordered this green, and so I ordered like this giant tub of this pigment, and it's a giant tub. Like it would last me several years.
Okay.
Just like a bucket of green, and I get it, and it's not the same green as the green I was using. So I call the company, and I'm like, what the fuck? And the lady's like, oh, we can't get that green anymore, so we switched it. We thought this would be close enough. I'm like, it isn't. Do you have any more of the old one? And she's like, I have one on my desk. I'm like, all right, I'll take it. So I buy this like 3 gram sample, and she mails it to me.
Yeah. And
it's the same green as it was in that tub I just got. It wasn't the old one. And I'm like, I hate you people. I don't buy their powders anymore.
Oh, it's not something that you could try and mix yourself and get no. Huh.
Dude, I have so many greens from so many different vendors. Nothing has matched it exactly yet. So we end up like using paint. It's funny we're talking about this because just today I had a conversation with a guy out in Chicago, and he has a machine, and he can match any color off of a Pantone or RAL scale. Right. So kind of like the machines that mix paint.
Yeah.
So he has one of those, but you can use it to manufacture resin grade pigments. So he was like, yeah, he's like, I can get you that green. He's like, give me a color sample. And he's like, we'll get it super close to what you're looking for. And I'm like, dude, you are awesome.
Sorry, go ahead.
I talked to another company about it, and they wanted like a shitload of money to color match. The lady's like, oh, it'll be $90. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to spend that to like, whatever, to make a bottle opener. It's not,
Exactly.
It's not worth it. But this guy's just like, oh, 2 ounces will be $15. And a 2 ounce pigment from like Smooth On is like $13.60. So I'm like, oh gee, $1.40 more, and I get any color I want. Okay.
So
let's do this.
Just the other night, I think last week, I learned a lot about Pantone colors from our friend Kyle. Kyle has his own shop making Halloween props and makeup and displays and things. And he was explaining to me trying to match colors on a Pantone palette, and like part of it is like just ordering just a bunch of colors like in a wallet, and then comparing them, being like, oh, this is the Pantone number, and make me something like that. And it's like, so sometimes it's like, I don't want to spend the $200 to get a catalog where every page is a different color. Like, can't you match it some other way cheaper? But
I actually have that paper at home from when I took color theory in the 90s.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's a useful tool to have, it sounds like.
I'd imagine.
I was going out with an artist at the time. It kind of made me an artist by default. Yeah.
That's fair. So now that we are 20 minutes into this, I want to get into, because we're the best at interviewing. We've been talking about Dellamorte Co. You know, the products that you make. I want to get more into, like, you know, kind of like take a step back, maybe like a little bit of backstory. What's the story of Dellamorte? How did you guys come to form this grouping, you know, of artists and creators, you know, that eventually led to us meeting you at the Steampunk World's Fair? Like, what's the history of Dellamorte?
Oh man, I mean, it's all Mike, really. It's pretty much Mike. It's his company. He's the master sculptor. Mike has a really interesting background, and I've been good friends with him since I was like 15 or 16 years old. So, I mean, I don't know how much of his life story you want, but I could really get into it.
Well, I mean, you know, like, how did Dellamorte come to be?
A creative outlet for Mike. He wanted to sculpt his own designs. Mike was working in the toy industry. I don't know if you know that about him.
You had mentioned that at World's Fair.
Yeah, we got like a brief
Okay.
little tiny speech.
Okay, yeah. Mike worked at McFarlane Toys for a very long time.
Right.
Yep.
And then he went freelance, and he did a lot of work for like NECA and DC Comics and like everyone. Mike has worked for like everyone. His work is pretty ubiquitous, but a lot of companies won't put the artist's name on the product, but you've absolutely seen his work. He's done stuff for everyone. I mean, Marvel, DC, fucking Disney, you know, Harry Potter. He's worked on every license you could imagine. Mostly like action figures. Like he was with DC for a while. You know, a lot of action figures primarily.
I'm trying to
He's
imagine
toy sculptor.
I'm trying to imagine a person sculpting like the Violator from Spawn. And then you know, within less than a year's time, also sculpting Minnie Mouse.
Oh yeah. Well, it was Tinkerbell.
Of course.
Because Heather painted it, and they wanted glitter in the paint, and it was not an easy job.
Huh.
So Mike, you know, was like looking for creative outlet. He wanted to do his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wanted to do his own thing. He's an incredible artist. I mean, obviously. You know, just a really incredible artist, and he wanted his own creative outlet. So he started. I remember harassing him about it too. Like we'd hang out, have a couple beers, be like, dude, when's the last time you made something for yourself? And he just looked at me like, years, man. So he started with like his minions, and they were on Oddities. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
The MTV show?
Yeah, the TV show Oddities. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mike was on. Yeah, Mike and Heather were on that as Dellamorte a bunch of years ago.
Oh. Like
And,
the one where they would go around to like the shop that sold weird stuff.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I follow now.
Okay. So anyway, Mike had made these like little skeletal minions, you know, like just little skeletal automatons, and then like I don't know, he just started sculpting his own stuff, and he's like, screw it. He started Dellamorte. I believe the name was Heather's idea for the company.
Right.
And yeah, it just kind of evolved organically. He had another partner early on who's a sculptor, but he left, and his I'm not going to disparage any artists, so it doesn't really matter. But he was partnered with Mike briefly, very briefly, and he didn't really contribute a lot, you know. And he left, and like it's Mike and Heather, and then you know like the mold maker Jeremy. And then I came along a little after, but I always helped with Dellamorte. Even in my old job, I would help at events because I have a sales background.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike started just doing chiller theater, horror convention in New Jersey. So, you know, they would get a table at Chiller for a number of conventions. And Dellamorte has been around since like 2011-ish, I think. 2010, 2011. So I still had a regular job back then. So, you know, he'd do conventions on the weekend. I'd come out and work the table with him because I'm good with people. Relatively good with people. I drink and say bad words, but, you know, for the most part, I'm good with people. And I'm a reason behind a couple collaborations. But anyway, Mike started, he was like, he wanted to do something. He wanted to make art that was functional. And Mike is, not just a toy guy. He's actually a classically trained sculptor. He had an internship in Italy over the summer.
So I was about to ask, like, what's the difference between a trained sculptor and a classically trained sculptor? Oh, Italy.
Yeah, Mike trained in Italy. He lived in Italy for a summer. But before that, it's funny. Mike never took an art class in college. None. But what he had was an apprenticeship at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. There's a master sculptor in residence there named Greg Wyatt, who's absolutely fantastic. So Mike worked for Greg Wyatt for like a decade, really honing his craft. And I mean, back then he performed at least, I think, like a dozen cadaver autopsies.
Really?
They would do like cadaver dissections for art students. It used to be legal. It's not anymore. They only for medical students now.
Right.
But to like learn anatomy, like,
yeah.
I mean, he is literally classically trained. So a lot of his early stuff is, reminiscent of, just great classical sculptures. There's like a huge Greek and Italian influence in his earlier work. And then like he transitioned to toys, but, he knows like anatomy and he's good with like viscera. His nickname at McFarlane was Monster Mike. Anyway,
that's really cool.
Yeah. So he did like all the crazy stuff at McFarlane. He did the Warcraft figures too, half of them. Anyway, he wanted to make functional art. He wanted it's one thing if something just looks cool, but it's doubly good if it does something. You might buy a statue because it looks great, but if it's like a vase or a cane or a planter, it has a use.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Dellamorte just kind of grew organically, and yeah, it's kind of cool. We're a good group of friends. I've known Mike since I was like 15 or 16. Been friends with Heather since I was like 19. And I mean, we're kind of the core. And now like Charlie joined us maybe a year or two ago. We met him at Seampunk. And he's just kind of good at everything. So the Tentacle Lantern is a collaboration between Mike and Charlie, because Charlie is really good at wiring stuff up and lighting and doing crazy stuff like that.
Okay. So can you take us through the steps, like the process of making like let's say a new piece from, like idea to finished product? Okay,
yeah, absolutely. I can actually take you through that process completely from scratch. So the initial thing would be the sculpt. So Mike would sculpt it. He uses a material called castelline. And castelline is interesting. It's kind of like a wax clay hybrid. It's fantastic stuff. It's a solid. It could be a liquid. It's whatever the fuck. So it gets really hard and it's really easy to work. You can use hand tools, which you heat with an alcohol torch, to kind of carve it like you would sculpt.
Yeah.
You can put it under a heat lamp to soften it up, to work it with these tools. It reacts to heat, but also you can cast in it. So if you had a mold of something, you could stick it in the microwave. It will become a complete liquid, and you could pour it in a silicone rubber mold.
Okay.
And it will harden, and then you can modify it from that. So it is a super versatile substance, and it's cool. It's really cool stuff.
Does Mike just start sculpting, or like does he sketch out an idea, or does he draw anything out first, or like have papers or reference, or does he just like who they say Da Vinci or no?
Mike just sculpts, dude.
because like he's I don't remember which like one of the four major artists could look at like a slab of marble and like
just
see it in there and then just take away the excess.
Yeah. Oh, well, the other cool thing about castelline is it's not just, it's additive and subtractive. So, like a slab of marble or something would be a subtractive type of sculpting.
Right.
But you can't put stuff back.
Right.
Castelline, you can. So like some types of sculpting, you're adding to something and whatever, but it's super versatile. So Mike, when he was younger, he did like a bunch of commission pieces, and they'd be like, "Oh, can you take us through the process?" And like after he was done sculpting, he would make a couple of sketches to make these people happy. But like he just goes. Okay, and like not just that, but like Mike has an amazing eye for like proportions and detail.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I won't say this about a lot of people, but he's like really like a modern Renaissance man. He
Yeah.
really is,
Yeah.
and he's super good at sculpting. And not only that, but what's uncanny is he's fast. He's 2 to 3 times faster than any other sculptor I've ever met. And any professional sculptor who's worked with him
Mm-hmm.
will, that's the first thing they'll say about him, besides how detailed he gets, is they're like, man, he sculpts so fast. He's incredible. He's incredibly efficient and quick. And he's gotten really good at a lot of different things like drapery, and he's great with drapery, he's great with armor. His strong point is a lot of organic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like musculature, like I said, he's got that classical background.
Well, there's
So
so
even
many
like,
there's so many
look at, like, the
textures to
Thor.
figure into these things.
Yeah, he's really good at texturing things. Like the Abigail Larson collaboration, man, that thing is incredibly textured. The Wraith. We've collaborated with Abigail a couple of times. I don't know if you guys know her. She's done Steampunk a few times.
The
She's a
name
great
sounds
illustrator.
so familiar.
She's an incredible illustrator. She's a wonderful person. We were at her wedding, last year, I think, a year and a half ago. Great people, her and her husband. They're lovely people, and she's like super talented. And we've collaborated because her style it's very stylized. And yeah, Mike's sculpted a few of her illustrations, and they look great. But anyway, take you through the process.
Right.
So Mike will sculpt the original in Castelline. So from that, we would make a silicone rubber mold. We use GI 1000. So the silicone rubber, you mix it. It's 2 parts. There's like a little attachment on a power drill to kind of mix it because silicone is like super thick.
Right.
And then you have to vacuum degas it. So vacuum degassing is removing any air
Right.
from stuff you just mixed because it's super thick and there's little air pockets that exist in it. So
You don't want any
You
bubbles.
you want no bubbles in your mold. So we degas it. We pour the silicone. You always pour from like a high point into the corner and let it slowly rise up. You have to build a little mold box first, so I'm getting ahead of myself here. So you build a mold box. You shore it up with like a sulfur-free clay, around the outsides of the box so that the silicone don't leak out.
Mm-hmm.
You pour your silicone, and then we pressurize that for 16 hours. So the pressurizing after the degassing really eliminates any chance of a bubble at all. And then you cut the mold. We like block molds because they're easy to store. They're efficient.
Right.
We hate cup molds. We despise cup molds. That was one of the first things I learned when I was being trained was, thou shalt never use a fucking cup mold, you fucking amateur.
Wait, can you describe the cup mold for a second? Like
Okay,
how is
so-
that different than a box mold?
Okay, so a box mold is, you physically build a box by
Right.
gluing some shit together.
Yeah.
So either plastic boards or foam core board, and you cut it and you glue it into a little box with an open top.
Right.
A cup mold would be, you go to like your local 7-Eleven and get a big gulp cup. You glue your statue to the bottom and you pour some silicone in there.
Oh.
And then
Right.
and then to hold it shut, you would just stick the mold back in the cup when you're ready to pour or shoot it. We hate those, and they're hard to store, and they're a waste. They're a waste of material.
Right.
Because like if it's a box, it's nice and straight, and you don't have these like round corners that are difficult to tape. So you get like a shitty seam on a cup mold, and man, you don't want a bad seam on art.
Right.
It's a pain to clean up,
Yeah,
and it doesn't look nice.
So,
So
hang, one second.
box-
So, any listeners who've been with us for a while, we do a lot of this kind of stuff on our Halloween episodes, we like artists making things, and so I've talked about some of the few makeup things that I've done before, and you're describing things that are easily 3 or 5 steps above my skill level in what I know, and
Okay.
and I'm still at the point where like I'm really happy. I just got a case of Duplo blocks to build my square
Mold
with.
boxes.
Huh? Yeah, Duplo. Like,
People on Reddit love those. I've never personally used them. We just use boards.
uh-huh.
But boards get expensive, man. Like if you get like cut plastic, like nice plastic or
Right.
acrylic,
Yeah.
it gets real pricey fast.
Well, then I could just
Like
reuse
nylon
the
boards.
Duplo.
Yeah, a lot of people love the Lego bricks, but
Yeah.
you don't get an even surface like that. It looks a little weird,
Well, it's on the
but
outside. You know.
yeah,
Alex, stop
whatever
it.
works.
This is
and
why
the other
I'm not a
thing-
professional.
Okay, and I'm gonna. Well, you know what? I'm gonna give you a couple pointers.
I'm an amateur. Yeah, hit me.
Okay. Okay. So what you do is on your mold, you want to carve into it. So use like a wood carving tool, like with an edge. So
Yeah.
it's got like a little V edge. Carve into it. Write the name. This is what we do on every mold. We write the date it was molded.
Okay.
Okay. So because molds have a shelf life.
Right.
I mean, if you use GI 1000 with the pink activator, it could last as long as 10 years, which is great. No mold will ever last 10 years. Or about 100 castings. Sometimes more if it's a simple piece, sometimes less if it has a lot of undercuts.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to write the name of the piece so you don't have to go fishing through everything. Name of the piece carved right in the mold. Date it was made. Then what you want to do is put your casting on a gram scale and weigh it so you know exactly how much material it takes to make that piece.
Huh.
Hey.
Yeah. See that? So, I mean, and that's the other thing. A lot of people who work with resin, they eyeball it. They just pour it into cups.
Yeah.
And that's a horrible way to work. Go to fucking Target or something, buy a food scale, get a gram scale and weigh everything by the gram so you get your ratios perfect.
Right.
So the resin I use is Innothane IE3025 from Innovative Polymers. Now it's owned by Ramf. And that's a 94 to 100 part mix ratio.
Right.
So, all right, getting ahead of myself here.
And is
So you
that
get your mold.
by weight?
Yeah, by weight. Yeah, 94 to 100.
Last night I just mixed expanding foam. That was 80 to 100.
Nice. See?
Okay, go ahead.
Same
I'm sorry.
thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, did you use a gram scale or did you just eyeball it in a cup?
Gram scale.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, I was
A lot of people
doing
don't.
work for Kyle, and I wanted to get it right, and I've seen him make it look really easy.
I was
Right.
sitting here on bated breath, and I was like, if Alex embarrasses me and says that he eyeballs it right now,
Yeah. Oh no, you never eyeball. Never eyeball. Because here's the problem with eyeballing. You're gonna get your ratios wrong, and if you really screw them up,
Yeah.
if like you underpour one of the parts, you might get something like snot that will never harden.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It sucks. And you don't want that shit in your molds 'cause it takes forever to clean out.
Yeah.
Yeah, uncured resin's horrible. So anyway, further along the process, so you have your mold, you cut it, it's keyed. Jeremy does most of the molds, and he's. I'll go out on a limb and say Jeremy's the best mold maker in the country. If he's not, he's one of the best. He's next level. He keys his molds by hand with a knife like you've never seen before. I've never seen anyone key a mold like this, man. It's unbelievable.
With a knife?
With a knife, yeah, just with like a scalpel. He cuts it in this crazy like zigzag lightning bolting pattern, and it locks perfectly
How deep does he go? Like,
all the way to the casting. Yeah, so the mold opens and closes. So he'll leave the bottom uncut, so it's not perfectly two-piece. It's like it just flaps open as much as it needs to. So you get like just a part of the mold that it's impossible to have a seam, which is great on casting. So yeah, so you get your mold. You tape the box shut when you're going to cast. So you clean your mold first because we vent the molds. So if there's a tricky spot with an air bubble, not only do we cut like triangle vents into the silicone, but we might drill little holes, which you got to blow out with an air gun. So that's part of the prep process. You might hit it with a little bit of mold release, not too much because the painters will hate you. Because you can't paint on top of mold release, and it'll adhere to the casting a little bit, and then they have to wash it with soap and water, and they will hate you. So very sparingly use the mold release spray. And whatever, you mix your resin, and we like to inject with catheter syringes. You mix your resin, you shoot it, you put it in a pressure tank. I've modified paint mixing tanks for this. You pressurize it at 60 psi. 25 minutes later, you got your casting. Some castings are a little more complicated. We use pins to key things, so you have to stick pins inside the mold. Some pieces with thin parts use armature wire, so you have to bend wire very carefully and stick it in the mold and hope that it doesn't shift while you're handling the mold or injecting liquid into it, or the liquid doesn't push it out of the way. So that gets a little tricky. And some of the stuff, is done with like metal powders and stuff. So you want to wear a mask because nobody wants bronze lung or aluminum poisoning.
Right.
Yeah, because your body doesn't really know how to process those metals. And
Yeah. Probably something to avoid.
I had lunch with a guy who had aluminum poisoning twice, and it was kind of creepy.
Wow.
Is there like side effects?
2 times.
I don't know. He wasn't all there, but
That's all I'm gonna say.
yeah, no, he seemed okay. I'm half kidding. Yeah, no, he was a great dude. He had worked on a lot of movies I was a fan of as a kid. He was like a legend, and we had a mutual friend, and he sold me some pigments, and I got to sit down and have like a 4-hour lunch with this dude, and he's like pretty much worked on every cool movie I saw as a kid. Like he had a part in, and I was like, holy shit, And yeah, like we just talked about casting and stuff, and he really liked the Dellamorte catalog too. He was just like, you have no idea how many people send me shit on Facebook. He's like, it's so refreshing to actually see good art. I was like, that's a huge compliment.
Yeah,
I've
put that one on the website.
I've heard this echoed by some other people too. I mean,
Cool.
I'll get to it at a different time, but
There's plenty of time for flattery.
Yeah. The process is, it's pretty straightforward. It's a pretty strong exothermic reaction with the resin. So like the heart vases are big. They use a lot of resin. They're hot for hours after you pull them out of the mold.
right.
And in fact, like if you cast too many, the mold heats up. So you have to kind of let it sit and cool down. So if you cast them successively too much, like it gets so hot, like I've actually ripped vases in half trying to pull them out of the mold.
So you pull them while they're still hot, like you don't let them cool down inside the mold?
Oh, if I have to shoot multiples, it's a hot item.
Right.
Yeah, it's a hot selling item. So there were weeks I was doing between 20 and 40 castings a week of the heart vase, like when it went viral. That's our best selling item is the heart vase. The first viral item was the tentacle candlestick holder.
So that tentacle candlestick, as Jared mentions, when you go to the show and like you've budgeted yourself and like I've paid for this, I've spent that, and like I'm down to like my last $20, and I walk into Dellamorte and I see these candlestick holders and I go, maybe just screw it, I'll lose the extra $80 because maybe I can't get just one, I'll have to get 2, and I know I said 20 is my limit, but let's just throw that into this store and let's just keep.
Yeah,
might as well take a big step over that line.
It's a great item. It's a really great item. We have a lot of affordable stuff though. So.
Oh yeah,
it's very true.
Yeah.
I spent the better part of probably a half hour trying to determine which Plague Doctor
ornament,
Christmas ornament I liked better.
Yeah,
because each of them had great qualities, and each of them had different qualities. And like one of them, I was like, I really like the staff on this one, but on this one, I like the mask a little bit better. It was literally painful. In a good way. It's like, how can I spend my money?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Plague Doctors. They look fantastic, and yeah, like again, like the Christmas ornaments, very affordable. Like Mike sets his prices extremely reasonable. Like he'd rather people be able to afford the merchandise. So it's not like, you go to a lot of shows and people come in, you don't want people coming into the room being like, man, this stuff is cool, if only I could afford it.
Yeah.
So, it's priced really reasonably, especially if you look at what other people would charge for resin statues the same size, and it's like they would charge like 2 to 3 times what Mike is charging. A statue is $60.
Especially with the detail
crazy.
That's put into your guys' product, like it is there. Even in the mugs. Like this is a mug, and still like looking, just looking at the Etsy shop, like looking at the Krampus mug. The detail in that thing is insane, and it's a mug, even the handle turns into, it's like the forked tail. You didn't have to do that. You could have just put a handle, but just that extra little bit, that it always goes such a long way, at least with me, like those little
Wait
things.
Till you see the skull.
Yeah, now like I'm kind of
Yeah, the skull mug that's not out yet. The handle is a spine.
Oh, damn it!
And like it ends in like hips at the bottom. It looks incredible, man. It's beautiful. And that I cast in like my custom bone mix, and Mike paints it, and it looks, or maybe Heather paints it. Heather is the best bone painter in the business.
Yeah, we skipped painting for a second. Can we touch on that?
Sure.
So what pieces, like, let's see, stuff that is going to be pigmented and maybe it doesn't need paint, like at what point
everything gets painted.
Okay.
Everything gets painted to some degree.
Right.
The only stuff that doesn't get painted is anything that's metal and that gets buffed. Right. So, and that's a whole separate process. I could get into that if you want. It's not hard. Like anything metal, I powder the mold with metal powder, and I'll brush it in sometimes with like an acid brush, just disposable shitty paintbrush. You get like whatever, 150 of them for like $5.
Yeah,
they're garbage. But metal powder is going to chew up a paintbrush. So like I'll literally buff it into the mold, and then I'll mix the rest of the metal powder into the resin itself and just stir it really good. And you get a suspension of metal in the resin, so it's like a metal resin hybrid. It's called cold casting or bonded bronze if you're using bronze powder. And then we'll hit the casting with like a wire brush or something to, or whatever, a Scotch Brite pad or a buffing wheel to give it like a nice luster and shine. So the canes, the barware, the metal stuff, that's the only thing that doesn't get painted. Everything else gets painted. We try to go for like a classic monochromatic scheme, mostly. But very recently, we brought my friend Rudy Antonsich on. He's an airbrush painter, and the guy's fucking ridiculous. Dellamorte used to only offer full color statues as a custom order thing, and Mike would get like usually someone who painted toy prototypes. Like he'd get someone from the toy industry, or if Heather had the time, she would do it because Heather's awesome at painting. She's freaking incredible painter. Anyway, it was a custom order though. It's expensive, but now like we have a full-time airbrush guy, so it's like all the statues are going to be available full color, and they look incredible. I don't know if you've seen them, but they look good. You can check the Instagram. There's a bunch of pictures up there.
I'm looking at some. So,
okay.
And these are on the Etsy page.
Okay. So like the mermaid, Krampus.
I'm looking at the Plague Doctor right now myself.
I just brought out the Plague Doctor. So were these just freehanded because like the ornaments look really close to the full-size statues.
Ah. All right. Industry secret. They look exactly like the full-scale statues because they're just shrunken down versions.
Okay.
So
was that like a 3D print or?
No, fuck 3D printers, man. They're too slow right now.
Ray sounds mad at me for saying that.
It's a frustrating thing. People constantly like, man, you should get into a 3D printer. So I was talking to a lady at Seampunk last year.
Right.
So I just pointed to one of our statues. I said, how long would that take you to 3D print? And she's like, 6 hours. I'm like, oh, I cast it in 25 minutes. I mean, it's a little longer than that because it takes a while to clean the mold, prep it, tape it all shut, and what have you. But it's quick. It's quicker. I'm quicker than a 3D printer. And I don't know if you've seen resolution on 3D printers, but I think it's garbage.
Right.
It's still very rough. It's kind of like inkjet printers in the 90s. It looks pretty good. But when you really look at it, it's slightly pixelated. It's a little rough. It's not a photograph.
And you have to do work to it to like smooth it out.
And when the effort is there, like, and not to say that people who 3D print don't put effort into it. I cannot do that shit at all. But like when someone tells me like this was, cast and hand painted and cast from resin, a custom cast that was
right.
What's the word I'm looking for? Like, not carved. Is it carved? Would you say carved? Not carved.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Like when you make the mold,
right?
Like all by hand, and it was painted by hand by a classically trained I'm gonna be more inclined to be like, okay, let me drop some
It's
bills
a little
on
more
this.
impressive.
Yeah, and
It's
like
a little more impressive.
Yeah.
when I'm showing it off to my friends, inevitably the next time they come over, I can say this was it to me. And again, I'm not trying to knock 3D printers. It's still unbelievable stuff.
No,
It's-
they're not there yet. They will be. It might be 5-10 years.
All right, wait.
And when 3D printers are there and they can do what I do quick enough, I'll buy a whole bunch of 3D printers and I'll run those instead.
Okay, but I'm
right
still
now,
stuck
this
on
is the way to go.
how you got the size change.
Okay, so we'll get back to that. There's a material called Hydrospan, and it can grow and shrink things. So do you remember as a kid, you'd get like those little sponge dinosaurs and put them in water
Yeah.
and they grow?
Right.
Okay, that's what this shit does. It's fucking magic.
What?
It's also like it's like $100 a quart. It is super pricey, but it's awesome. So you can grow things. Now, growing things is not perfect. It's not perfect. So you have to rework it and resculpt over it. And in fact, when you were talking about the diving helmet nightlight, that's based off of my bottle opener design. And we just ground off the back and molded it and then grew it and then had to resculpt it and mold it again. So same idea. So the Plague Doctor, we shot there's 2 hydrospans and one shrinks it. Now the shrink holds detail a lot better. But it has to be molded because it's kind of gummy. It's like a gummy bear kind of consistency. You got to mold it right away. So you shoot it in hydrospan. When you take it out of the mold, it starts shrinking. And over, I don't know, a couple days or something, you get like this tinier version based on the ratios you used with water. And then you mold that and you're good to go. Sometimes you have to mold it and then clean it up.
Okay.
You clean up the casting and then make your mold. Because like I said, it's not always perfect, but the shrink holds the detail super well. The grow, you definitely have to resculpt and smooth it out. The edges are rough sometimes. Takes a little bit of effort. But the shrink is awesome. So that's like what we did. And the other thing is, when you have a really good sculpt you've put a lot of effort into, you might as well get as much mileage out of it as you can. So you brought up the Plague Doctor. I don't know if you've noticed, we also have a Plague Doctor refrigerator magnet. Which is just the statue's head.
the mask,
Cut in half. Yeah. Cut in half. It's a side profile with like a magnet on the back, That came from the statue. And we've done that with all the Krampus heads too.
Huh.
So when you have a great sculpt, you might as well get as much mileage out of it as possible. Growing stuff and shrinking. Like, the Dryad, we have 2 size versions. Plague Doctors, we have 3 versions of the Dryad, I'm sorry. There's an ornament, a small statue, large statue. The Plague Doctors we shrunk into Christmas ornaments, but we also have the larger statue, and they're nearly identical, just no base. Sometimes when shrinking stuff, we have to rework it a little. Baba Yaga is a great example. The statue, the braid is hanging off of the head, and on the ornament, it's connected to the back, just because there's no feasible way to get an armature wire in something that small. It'd be too fragile and snap. Yeah.
Okay, before we go any further, as you're naming this stuff, I want to make sure people know where they can see it. And review while we're talking about it, because we're going to keep going for a little while.
Cool. So DellamorteCo.com will take you right to the Etsy page, or you could find us on Instagram at Dellamorte Co.
I just did.
And also Facebook.
And it's... We're at that point where we just go, man, it's so cool. It's just really cool.
You had cool stuff and
Yeah.
But if you had, being a part of, such a neat company with such talented people, is there and this is such a lame question, but I'm dying to know, a dream project, a dream thing that you would like to make, but maybe it's either too expensive, too big, too time consuming. Is there a thing that you would like Dellamorte to make, maybe for your own personal use, but maybe also for sale? Is there that one thing that you haven't made yet that you would love to do if you had the time, materials, etc.?
Honestly, I'd like to collaborate with more artists. So Dellamorte collaborates with a number of artists right now. So we collaborate with Abigail Larson. So her Edgar Allan Poe, her Lenore, and her Wraith, we do versions of. And they're great, and she's great. We also collaborate with Eric Teague, who you might know from Steampunk. Eric and Ray Teague, they're like
All these names
amazing
sound so
sounds really
familiar.
costumers. They're the best dressed people at Steampunk World's Fair every year. They're wonderful.
That's quite the title.
I'd probably recognize them if I saw.
You absolutely would. I don't think they let him enter the contests anymore for the costumes.
It's
I think
not
he's just
fair.
a judge. Yeah, it's just not fair. It's totally not fair. He's an award-winning costume designer from DC. Dude is like just a dapper motherfucker, and he's awesome. I love that guy. Love him. So we've done like some custom art dolls with him, and they look incredible. I mean, they're, you know, he uses like vintage Victorian doll parts, and he makes like their outfits, and he's great. And then we also collaborate with Fyodor Pavlov, and we do his Sherlock Holmes statue, which again, Mike sculpted the illustration, and that looks great. So yeah, there's like a couple of artists where I'm like, man, I'd love to see Mike sculpt their work.
Right.
You know, or have Mike collaborate with them and see what they could come up with. Like, off the top of my head, Ugo Serrano would be my top pick. Love that guy's stuff on Instagram. He's into all the same weird shit we are. He seems like a really cool, smart guy. And, like, he does, like, custom armor, and Mike is really good at sculpting armor. So I'm like, man, like, the two of them, like, if you know, but he lives on the West Coast. We've never met him, but he's, like, Facebook friends with Heather. That's a guy I would love to see something with. Like, there's a couple of artists like that where I'd love to see what Mike could do with their stuff, you know, or just like work together, like get him to brainstorm. I'd love to see Mike do more of Abigail's stuff. I mean, yeah, I'd like to see more collaborations. As far as pieces, man, I don't know. That's a tough question because, man, he just
Sky's the limit, I guess.
It really, I mean, yeah. I had made a comment to Jeremy once, and he's just like, dude, he's like, what can't you really do? You know, if you know, like, if you can imagine it, you know, you could, you know, whatever, make it happen. And I mean, Jeremy is like 1,000 times better at mold making than I am because he's not a guy who's like, oh, that's impossible. He's like, he's one of those dudes who's like, oh, that's really hard, but we're gonna figure this out. He doesn't say no ever. He's like, all right, that's a difficult problem, and he'll find a solution. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I don't have anything negative to say about anybody I work with. You know, like, everyone is, like, really talented and a really good friend, as opposed to other places where I've worked where, like, there's some people, if they were drowning, I'd throw them a cinder block. But,
Oh, that tickled me.
yeah.
Because in my head, I'm like, but wait, that... Oh.
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
Look, man, I used to kill kids for money, all right? Half kidding. I worked for Nabisco. I sold cookies.
You know, I was sitting here trying to think what... Is there going to be legal ramifications of this episode?
No.
When
Trans fatty acids, man. Like $3 to $4 million worth of fucking Oreos a year, dude. I made a lot of kids chunky.
Delicious.
And I guess some adults too.
I'm probably one of them.
Yeah, this is so much cooler though. And like I said, you know, like I'm working with my friends and they're like super talented people. You know, it's just like, yeah.
It's a blessing because like it seems to work with you guys. You know, like you said you don't have a single bad thing to say, and I can't remember if it was during pre-show, if it was just really early on in the episode, like Alex mentioned, like working with your friends can be difficult.
Yeah.
You know, like you know, they say you should never live with your best friend. You should, you know, like
they say never go into business with your best friends.
Yeah. And like it can be tough, but like hearing that you guys have essentially nothing but success is refreshing.
Well,
and
they're very reasonable people. I mean, that's the other thing, you know, like it helps if your friends aren't assholes. You know?
Yeah, that'll do it.
So I mean, these are some of my closest friends on the planet. So yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, you don't want to get too close to an asshole. You're going to get some shit on you. So
again, put it on a t-shirt. Just
yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's very cool. I really can't complain. And we get to make cool stuff. Like, that's the other thing. Is like, when we go to Steampunk, I've been making stuff that I've been casting for maybe 3 years, but I've been selling the Dellamorte stuff since pretty much day one. I've been behind, behind the table for the most part. And it never ceases to amaze me. I'm always like, wow, this stuff looks amazing. You know, like it hasn't lost its magic for me yet, which is impressive because, you know, I'm literally the man behind the curtain. You know, like can run you through the process on every single piece. I mean, there's molds I could clean blindfolded at this point, like the heart. The heart vase, absolutely. I've probably made like 800 heart vases.
Good lord.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the vampire bat vase. Because
See,
man.
I like the octopus.
I see the bat and I'm like, this looks like it could be on set for Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it's not ridiculous where I could put it in my house somewhere and my friends wouldn't question it.
Yeah, it's a cool one, man. It's really cool. I like that one a lot.
And it's a respectable piece. It's not
and
like
it's a good likeness.
Well, yeah, it's like,
and it's not goofy.
Right. Something that's like not respectable or goofy. Like, if someone bought it at Spirit Halloween or they bought it at Party City.
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, that thing's, made of foam and plastic and you paid $10 for it. Whereas, like, when you see this one, it's like, it's legit. Like, it has its own air of, like, respect about it.
Yeah, it is handcrafted by, master craftspeople, and it's legit art. And man, it looks good. It doesn't look corny. Like, Mike will never do a cheesy piece. That's not, it's not in the man's DNA. It's just not. He's not into corny stuff.
I wanted the Mecha Kraken statue so bad.
Oh,
but
man, that is a nice piece.
What holds me back is, like, I don't have a nice enough room to put it in. Like,
my house doesn't do it justice.
It's like, what kind of display would I need? Like, I can't just put it on the coffee table. Like, it has to go somewhere like equally nice as what I see in the vendor room.
I gotta tell you something. I had to cast each joint on those fucking tentacles. I made by hand, one at a time for him. So another secret. So like the mecha tentacles, and I have a mold titled Mecha Tentacles.
Okay.
Okay, it's two different pieces. So there's like a larger and a smaller piece, and he just he sculpted each piece once, and then we molded it, and then I just cast a whole bunch of them, and then he strung them together to make the tentacles. And just manipulated it to like shaped it, with like a little bit of heat and stuff. Because resin you can bend with heat, like with a heat gun if you're careful.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's only like 2 parts, but then it's like, I don't know, whatever it is, 30, 40 links together. But it's really just, he only sculpted each of those parts once because you want to reuse stuff. And the same thing, the flying monkey. I think it's only 3 or 4 different types of feather on the back. And it was just a mold, and I just cast a crap load of feathers and just gave him a Ziploc bag full of feather castings in all the different sizes. And then he arranged them together, in the clay to make the wings. And, bent them and shaped them. But it's just 3 or 4 sculpts. It's not, you know what I mean? He's not, he's efficient. There's like little smart shortcuts that you can take, which is great. Yeah.
It's beautiful. To put it bluntly, it's beautiful shit. Major props to you and the team.
Thanks.
It's just one of those things. It's a goddamn room.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So next time, if you happen to are there any upcoming shows that someone might be able to catch Dellamorte Co at? Like maybe in the near, because you said, I believe you're in New Jersey. Is that correct, Ray?
We're in Jersey. Yeah, we're all from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Heather grew up in New York, but yeah, we all live in New Jersey. Most of us are in Bergen County. We're pretty close. We only live like 15, 20 minutes away from each other, if that. Right. So like I drop off stuff by Mike's a couple times a week. Now we really only do Steampunk World's Fair at this point.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do Wicked Fair too, but they don't have a Wicked Fair anymore.
Right.
But yeah, like we pretty much just do some of Jeff's events, and that's it. We did Necro-Comic-Con, which was like Jeff's one-off event.
It was like a sister show to Wicked Fair that one year.
Yeah, and then he had a second one in the city with Voltaire that we vended as well, which was really cool. Got to meet Brian Viglione and his wife Olya at that show. They were like hanging out with us for like 2 hours. Really nice people. It was like a Voltaire event, but it was Necro-Comic-Con too. But it was more of a show with some vendors, and that was cool. We did that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We don't do horror conventions anymore. We just kind of do some of Jeff's events. But you'll also be able to see some Dellamorte & Co. items on the final episode of Voltaire's Gothic homemaking. I
Where
don't know
can
if I'm supposed to talk about that.
oh
That's on YouTube. That's a great show, very entertaining. But yeah, we're going to be on the final episode of that whenever that airs.
Are there any
Probably in a
shows
couple
or,
weeks.
or conventions that you guys want to do?
You know what? No. Um,
fair?
and honestly, it's because, like Mike has a family,
Right.
and, like doing a show is an entire weekend, but not just
Yeah.
that, but it's not like we're illustrators where we can just pack up a bunch of stuff in a suitcase.
Yeah.
It's large physical objects. So to do a show, we take 2 SUVs, with like the back seats down and load them to capacity
Yeah.
to do a show because our merchandise takes up a lot of space. And like our displays and stuff take up a bit of space, and we've really streamlined them, but it takes a while. I mean, the room takes a couple hours to set up, and yeah, it's just like it's a lot of work. Like a lot of work goes into just even like loading and unloading the trucks.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, if it were smaller items, we probably could. I mean, I'm looking to like maybe do some shows solo, but every now and then we'll do like a small event. Mike just did an event at QXT's with Heather. I couldn't make that one.
So,
But yeah, we don't do a lot of shows.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can still, if you're looking to at least check out the stuff, maybe buy some stuff. You can still check out Dellamorte Co. On Etsy. You can take a
We're
look
on
at
Etsy.
you can take a look at the products. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on Instagram. I just tossed a follow because I was like, what, Instagram? But
Yeah. We're also in a couple of retailers.
really?
Yeah. So if you're in Brooklyn, a bunch of our stuff's in Homebody Boutique. There's a shop in Salem whose name escapes me right now that carries Dellamorte products. And on the West Coast, there's Les Quillette, carries a whole bunch of Dellamorte stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of retailers that sell our stuff too.
look at that.
You
Even
can
our
check
West Coast
that
friends
Yeah.
can get in on the Dellamorte in person, or check them out on the internets.
Yeah, we're on the internets as invented by Al Gore and pluralized by George W. Bush.
Beautiful. That got me again, man. You're tickling me tonight. But go ahead, go check them out. If you happen to be at Steampunk World's Fair, possibly next year, keep your eye out for the giant tentacle outside the hotel room.
Come by, say hello, have a beer.
I mean, that's exactly how this episode happened. Was walking in and saying hello and saying, "Oh my God, it's the Jersey Devil."
And Brett going, "Oh, I know Ray. Ray's a cool guy."
Yeah, that too. Yeah, because
Yeah, we follow each other on Instagram.
Oh, that Brett.
Yeah.
But Ray, I gotta say, thank you so much for coming on.
Guys, thank you so much for having me.
It was an absolute pleasure learning about all the stuff that I spent a good amount of time drooling over in New Jersey a couple weeks ago. But I mean, honestly, to you and your team, keep up the great work. It's all great
Thanks.
stuff.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff coming out soon. We're gonna have a new nightlight. New mugs very soon.
Yeah.
I could use some themed nightlights.
Who couldn't?
We have a whole
use-
bunch.
I've got like generic, but I mean, in this house, I could.
Yeah, you're gonna need some. Get that generic garbage out of here.
I think the nightlight's only $25. Very affordable.
Yes.
For something
Yeah.
that's both functional and decorative, come on. How can you beat that?
It's
Can't go wrong.
it's almost like my joke of like when someone sneezes, I say curse you, because I'm gonna drive where the demons that jump out of your head when you sneeze.
Of course, obviously.
It's like your nightlight is supposed to protect you from the monsters, but the nightlight probably is a monster.
Yes,
if you
to
get it
scare away the less scary monsters.
Exactly.
Just the Krampus. No, some of them are happy. I like the bat one a lot. We have like a bat hanging in a tree behind in front of a full moon,
Oh,
and that's looks so good. It looks good. It's and it's easy to cast.
That's
So-
the yep. That's
It's
the
an
kicker.
important criteria for me. The Dia de los Muertos is very difficult because it has like 40-something vent holes that you have to blow them out by hand with an air gun on each side, and then if there's a stubborn piece, you have to pluck it out with tweezers. So that one takes a little more effort to make, but it looks amazing too. But the bat one is probably my favorite nightlight. the heart looks great. The Krampus looks great. There's a Dryad. There's a Kraken.
Okay,
and the new one's going to be a Raven.
Stop. They're too good. There's too many. They're too good.
Oh,
and
man.
then I have my own diving helmet with the tentacles, which is pretty cool too. That Mike sculpted.
That's rad, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Just I need to close the Etsy. I'm sorry, but okay. Ray, again, thanks so
You'll be
much.
bankrupt.
Seriously, you don't even know.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Last Steampunk, this guy walks in within the first half hour, looks around our room, and he goes, "I want that. I 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 want," and kept saying that for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And we're just like, "Sir, could you come back in half an hour while we wrap it all up for you?" After we gave him a ridiculously generous discount, guy dropped like $800.
Holy jeez,
Well,
yeah,
he has good taste.
He literally bought one of almost anything. He's just like, this event just started, and I see what I like, and I want it. And he was awesome. He was so nice, and he was just like, he's like, I love this stuff. I want it. Let's do this right now.
It's the right customer to have.
You cannot argue with that logic.
No, he was great.
Just get it.
Because if you don't get it, you get the buyer's remorse. Or no, the
You get the regret.
The regret.
Yeah.
The buyer.
Yeah.
The non-buyer's
You get the
regret.
I wish I should have.
Yeah.
That would have looked
Shoulda
cool
picked
right
it up.
here.
Like a tentacle
They
mug.
should be coming out soon. They should be coming out soon, you know? I think the skull mug first. That'll...
We got to talk about...
I'm doing a test cast tomorrow, so
Ooh.
they could be out as soon as next week, the skull.
Well, we got to talk about cool stuff. I learned a bunch.
I learned a lot today.
This is one of like the reasons why we want to do this is so we could learn stuff.
I thought I learned everything I needed to know at work because like Ray gave us a good like he was telling us all about the process at World's Fair in between helping customers. But like even tonight there was so
and
much
talking
more.
a bit about beer.
Well, yeah, obviously.
I know a bit about beer.
A little bit. I mean, if you're gonna talk beer, I mean Brett's the guy. Yeah, he's the one.
And past artists that we've had who make stuff, they are usually pretty open to their process because when one of us joke like, I can't do that. You're way more talented than us, and they go, no, you can do it. You just got to practice. Like you can pick it up. Mm-hmm. And so like, thank you for sharing so much information about like how you guys do this stuff. Because like I mean, if you encourage other artists, you could only make more art.
Yeah.
So why would anyone discourage that? So thank you so much for sharing.
Well, I've nothing to be afraid of. I mean, really, it's like what? Oh, okay. So there's more cool art in the world. Great.
Exactly.
Awesome.
What do I care? Yeah, exactly. Why not? Why not encourage people to like go out and make great stuff?
God, again, just put it on a T-shirt. Ray, thank you so much for coming on,
man.
Thank
you, guys.
Again, best to give our best to the rest of the crew at Dellamorte Co. You guys make great stuff. Thanks for telling us all about it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. Hopefully we'll be seeing you guys next year, maybe at the fair, and all that jazz. I guess that's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I guess that's all I got. I'm done this week. That's it.
Awesome.
All right, so until next week, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Ray.
And this has been episode 275 of Opinions May Vary.